Welcome back, everybody. You're tuned in here with Raider Dave. It's Wednesday, February 5th in the year of 2020. It's another beautiful day here in the Inland Empire in Southern California. It's beautiful outside, but it's cold, man. It was like 27 degrees when we woke up this morning, man. Getting cracked into, man, this winter. Man, we have an actual true winter in Southern California, so shout out to that. Today, man, we're going to get into the Las Vegas Raiders, the quarterback of the future for the Las Vegas Raiders. I know there's been some question throughout the week, so we're going to dive into that. We're also going to dive into QB options in 2020. Part of our fan base has lost support in Derek Carr, and rightfully so. This is a quarterback-driven league, so I understand completely. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of Derek Carr. I'm supporting Derek Carr. He's the Raiders quarterback of the future, I hope. If not, we'll move accordingly. But I do want to say that I'm the type of fan / podcaster who will break down his flaws and will break down his strengths. So there's a lot of good things about Derek Carr, but there's a lot of question, a lot of gray area, things we don't know moving forward with Derek Carr, and I think it's rightfully so to critique it, and that's what I'm here to do, man. I'm here to talk about that stuff because I think I provide a fair analysis when it comes to Derek Carr. I'm not just calling him trash, or I'm not just, I'm not black or white on this situation. Like I said, we're going to dive into the gray area of what needs to be discussed. So every year, it's a new trend in the NFL. It's a copycat league. Every team is going to be looking for the next Patrick Mahomes. He just took out the San Francisco defense in the Super Bowl, looking like they were going to lose that game. So the key phrase for Patrick Mahomes so far in 2 seasons, you can't make that throw unless you're Patrick Mahomes, or that play doesn't evolve unless you're Patrick Mahomes. Very true. It's a copycat league. Everybody's going to be looking for the next Patrick Mahomes. But if you're Derek Carr, the key phrase that we all use as Raider fans, we need 2016 Derek Carr, especially if they're going to compete with Patrick Mahomes and what I'm calling now the Wild Wild West shootout, because you need to be putting up 30 to 35 points a game. You need, hey, you know what? The Raiders came out week 2 and they beat the Chiefs 31-28, right? Not the other way around, 28-10. You can't have 40-9 in week 13 at Kansas City. You can't be 2-10 versus Kansas City all time, and you can't be 0-6 in Arrowhead. All right, so we're going to get into our intro. We'll get back into the quarterback discussion here. We're going to talk about what may work for these Las Vegas Raiders at the quarterback position moving into the future. Hope you're having a great day. Stay tuned. All right, so I'm going to get into what makes a good quarterback in my opinion and what I'm looking for. It's most of the time not analytics. Like I do read analytical stats. I do respect, how they have it all quantified and put into categories to where you can literally break down every phase of the position to a science. I respect all that. I do not fall ultimately into that category as far as just going off statistics. My big deal, especially at the quarterback position, is decision making. I think if you have a quarterback with good decision making, it eliminates the need for an elite wide receiver. It becomes not an issue because a great running back and a great tight end obviously are more important. I mean, look how the Raiders used their tight ends this year. You had Foster Moreau, who had 5 touchdowns. He didn't drop any passes this year. No matter what, though, calling plays at the line of scrimmage, that's something I think Derek Carr, for the most part, has been good at throughout his career. However, in John Gruden's offense, I do have some question. There's been a lot of confusion between him and Tyrell Williams. They've had drops. There's been a lot of miscues, especially I brought up that week 2 loss in Oakland versus Kansas City. That game was detrimental because you have Tyrell Williams in a one-on-one matchup in the end zone, and somehow there was if you go on Twitter, you have half of Twitter, I'm referring to Raider fans on this, criticizing, and even some media members, you have them criticizing, you have one side criticizing Tyrell Williams, and you have one side criticizing Derek Carr. Now, in my opinion, that plays on Derek Carr. Derek Carr, you put the football in that situation when your wide receiver has one-on-one coverage in the end zone, that's only that you should be getting the football to your wide receiver and not overthrowing him or putting the ball where the defender can make the play, in which Brashad Breeland had made that play, right? That was the play. I got in arguments with Raider fans. Oh, no. Tyrell ran the wrong route. Let me repeat that. and this is common football logic, man. Okay, and I'm not a quarterback. I did not play quarterback in high school. I'm a defensive guy. But let me put this in perspective. You have one-on-one coverage on that play. The only place you put that football, and this is common sense to me, is where the wide receiver has inside leverage. So low and away, back shoulder, to the sideline. If you're going to throw deep into the end zone, maybe the corner pylon in the back of the end zone, where only your receiver can get the football. So once again, that play stood out for me in that game. He also made another horrible pass that was picked off right after that on the ensuing drive right after that. And they're down 28-10. They were up 10-0 in that game. My point being is that's decision making. That's not an issue of having an elite wide receiver. Now, granted, to Carr's defense, Tyrell Williams, he dropped the football 5 times this year. Key drops. I mean, one resulted in, I think, in Houston. That could have been a win. If he makes that play, they get down the field and they continue to move the ball. Once again, it's anybody's guess at that point, but Tyrell Williams did not help him with some of those key drops. And as far as like calling plays at the line of scrimmage, like I said, on that play, going back to that play against Kansas City week 2, that was 1st and 4 from the goal line. I don't know if Carr changed the play on that and audible because they were in a heavy set to run the football. Tyrell Williams was the only wide receiver at the top of the screen in man-on-man coverage. Did Carr audible out of that play into a pass play? That was another big question. That was another big debate. But that's my point being is, calling plays at the line of scrimmage, that's a weakness that I see, making those adjustments. And once again, his receivers did not help him, so I'm trying not to be too critical here, but it always falls on your head coach and your quarterback. So another thing, getting the ball to the playmakers, man, which I thought he did a pretty good job. We have a lot of rookies, Hunter Renfrow, Foster Morrow. You got Darren Waller in his 2nd year who transitioned to a tight end. Excellent. He's an all-pro tight end. You got Josh Jacobs, 1,000-yard rusher in the backfield. You got DeAndre Washington who stepped in nice. A good offensive line. My biggest question is Zay Jones. How the hell did Zay Jones get traded for a 5th-round pick and only get 27 targets through 10 games? That was a head-scratcher for me. That could be on the coaching staff. But once again, he finishes the year with 20 receptions and 147 yards. I was a little disappointed in that. They didn't utilize Zay Jones, and there was times we did see Zay Jones wide open. We don't want to be hearing about excuses like all I need. Like I didn't like his latest response, like get me an elite wide receiver. They drafted Amari Cooper for you. I know he had an alarming drop rate throughout his Raider career, but they've drafted you wide receivers in the top 5. They paid Tyrell Williams $10 million a year. I know he had some key drops. You got Darren Waller. You got Josh Jacobs. You got the highest priced offensive line in the league. One of the highest priced offensive tackles coming off a Super Bowl victory, protecting Tom Brady's blind side. So my big question is that everything Derek Carr needs? Another argument in defense for Derek Carr is that the change at from offensive coordinator to head coaching, you name it. I know Tom Brady, he's had Bill Belichick his whole career, but, Tom Brady gets his offensive coordinators head coaching jobs. There's a big difference. Whereas Todd Downing and Bill Musgrave, you don't hear about him really anymore. Bill Musgrave had that stint in Denver, but you don't really hear about him. Is Todd Downing even in the NFL anymore? Basically, a quarterback, a lot of what I'm talking about needs to come from within on the quarterback. It needs to come from his own mind, his own intent. I'm sure deep down it's good for Derek Carr. He wants to be a Raider. That's what we want. Throughout 6 seasons, his average is 9 losses a season. We're averaging 9. We have 1 winning season with Derek Carr. I wasn't critical of Derek Carr in 2017, 2018. Not at all, man. If anything, I expected Derek Carr to turn the corner, be completely healed from his injuries. He had the broken back, the broken leg. The broken vertebrae, I should say. A few bones broken in his the transverse injury. Scary stuff. He had the pinky. It played through that. But there's just a lot of things, man, moving forward. I believe in Derek, but once again, it's a must fix in the win column. He's got to fix the win column. Quick style. 7-9 is okay. 8-8's better. 10-6, good. That's what we need. And 11-5, in my opinion, if you're going 11-5 in today's league, that's great. You're doing good things in this league. And in all fairness to all of us Raider fans, here's my question is, what does make an NFL quarterback good or even great? you know? Derek Carr, we've seen 92 games, man. It's translated into 38 wins and 53 losses. I mean, in the NFL, pretty much everyone is replaceable unless you're Patrick Mahomes. Like I said, a key phrase, unless you're Patrick Mahomes right now. Even Tom Brady, is having an issue in New England trying to get what he feels or whatever he's doing. I don't even know what the hell he's doing, but if what he's leveraging right now, so I'll get into that in a little bit, but even Tom Brady right now is finding himself as a free agent based on his own terms, of course. But what I'm getting at, and not that the New England Patriots are trying to replace him, but they're trying to, whatever they're trying to do. But my point being is that unless you're Patrick Mahomes, you're replaceable in this league, or Lamar Jackson. I'll be fair enough to say that. Once again, we have to go through this process. The Raiders are showing interest in a quarterback this offseason. So if Derek Carr is cut, what free agent? If he's traded, what kind of capital are you going to get for Derek Carr if you trade him? Is it a second-round pick at this point? Last year it could have been 2 first-round picks, as some were saying. If he stays, who's the best quarterback to put behind him in the draft that's going to push him, that's going to push for that starting role? Who's the best quarterback you could draft in the 2020 draft? Or in free agency, who's the quarterback that you could go for, a veteran, maybe a clipboard guy that's going to push Carr? Like I said, and when I say push Carr, I don't mean, to push him to motivate him. What I'm saying is to push for his starting job, because a sense of urgency, what that does, that creates a sense of urgency. And that's what I've been saying all year, is somehow, some way, there needs to be a sense of urgency. It can't just be us fans piling on Derek Carr. It needs to be somebody in that number 2 spot that's pushing Carr, saying, I'm going to take your job and I'm going to win games with this team. And that's not a slap. I want to be very clear. I'm not trying to pick on Derek Carr here. So, and like I said, and last year we thought it was funny, Max Kellerman, when he challenged him into the octagon, and he's like, and basically what Max Kellerman said is, you can see a quarterback that don't want it, and I'm going to bring up a point, man, is the Raiders were 6-4 at this point. They had every reason to prove everybody wrong, and I know things fell apart. I know they have a lot of rookies on their team, but to be 6-4 and then finish your last 6 games 1-5, and 3 of those games were division games. You lose 2 out of 3 division games. You lose to the Jets in an ugly way on the road. The Jets just punched us right in our mouth. Yeah. So, and with that brings up some weakness, strengths and weaknesses. And I'm just going to close out Derek Carr with some strengths and weaknesses. I'm going to start with the weaknesses, man. Decision making. In my opinion, Carr has made some poor decisions under center. From fumbled snaps, I've been reviewing those plays a lot. He's fumbled quite a few snaps under center where at points where you don't need him, where he shows he's nervous, man. The fumbled snaps this year, and a lot of them they got back. But, decision-making is one that's starting to stand out to me. And that could even be decision-making and how he's responded, like I mentioned earlier, to Max Kellerman's comments. Maybe stay away from social media, man. Block that out. Don't worry about what us fans say. Worry about winning games. That should be the primary focus for Derek Carr. So decision making for me so far is a weakness until proven otherwise. Footwork in the pocket, that's one all of us have critiqued that. And basically what I'm seeing is his footwork is nice overall. He's good at how he pivots. He's good at how he slides in the pocket to a certain degree. What it is that I'm seeing that needs to happen, he's got to settle down, man. It's the happy feet. Like we all talk about the happy feet. Well, that's Derek Carr settling down in the pocket. He's just got to settle down and be confident in making the throw. The last game, week 17 in Denver, man, that's one that stood out for me. He did not settle down in the pocket. If you watch that play, he had Hunter Renfrow wide open on a double move, free release on the outside. I've been saying it, push the ball at the sideline. I think that's his weakness. And I'll even add that one in there, is on the left side, when he throws to his left, he's inaccurate, man. He has been very inaccurate when he's thrown across his body. I know he's thrown across his body, but to the left side of the field, Derek Carr is not making those throws, and a lot of that has to do with his footwork in the pocket. He just got to settle down. He's got to settle down, especially on that play, and he knew it that day because he walked the side. That was on him, man. Missed a wide-open Hunter Renfrow He hits him in stride. Hunter Renfro's walking into the end zone, and the Raiders are victorious in Denver, and they finish 8-8. And I don't give a shit where they end up in draft picks. I'm not worried about, at that point, when we're playing NFL football games, I'm not worried about the draft in Week 17 when you can go 8-8. I'm worried about avoiding a losing season. I'm tired of losing seasons. And this goes on your permanent record. You know what I mean? As a franchise. Your permanent record is 7-9. You could have been 8-8. And to follow up on that failed third down attempt, we went with a wide open Hunter Renfrow for a touchdown. Justin Carlson follows up with a missed field goal. The difference in winning that football game. If they even get that field goal, they win the game. My point being is Derek Carr needs to execute. So I ranted off a little bit there. But scheme adjustments, man. I don't think the scheme adjustments are quite there. I think Derek Carr sees it in the defense, what's there. But as far as making that thorough adjustment to getting it to the most open receiver in space, I think that needs to be worked on. So scheme adjustments, I think, is a fair critique. And using his legs, man. When plays break down, just use your legs, man. There's a lot of green field in front of Derek Carr. I'd mentioned earlier, he runs a 4.6, 7.40, so it's good enough to go get you 8, 10 yards, and you can run out of bounds. You know, the quarterback's protected this league. You can slide. There's a lot of things you can do moving forward to avoid, to sustain a drive, I should say, when a play breaks down. Taking sacks, man. I think early on in his career it was good that he was taking sacks. He was making the appropriate decision early on, taking the sacks early on in his career. But now it's gotten out of control. It's become a bad habit, in my opinion, where I get it. You're trying to protect the football. You're trying to, hey, let's just get to the next play. I get all that. But taking sacks has become a bad habit, if you ask me. Therefore, I list it as a weakness. Now, also, ball security in the pocket, man. I'd mentioned fumbled snaps. I'm also mentioning that, there's a lot of times he gets hit in the pocket. The ball comes loose. Sometimes we get the ball back. But ball security in the pocket is a concern of mine. Let me get to his strengths. And I think this is what makes Derek Carr good, is the 2-minute offense. I think his up-tempo offense is very effective. I think that helps out a lot of quarterbacks, though, in the NFL. I think a lot of quarterbacks, some of them are built around that type of offense. But I think with Derek Carr, I think if you do more 2-minute offense, I think you're going to get a better Derek Carr. And they did try that. Green Bay game's a great example. He played great in that game, aside from the fumble and aside from some of the decision-making that I brought up. Overall, his decision-making in that game was poor at times. But the way they dropped back and threw the football, the way the play calls were going down, and the way he was maneuvering the offense in a 2-minute up-tempo offense, they were very effective, and that's why you saw the yardage kind of pile up and they were spreading the ball around the field. Now, that 2-minute offense also translates to, the end of the second quarter, where Derek Carr is always going to get you points. If he's got the ball back, if he's got the ball with a minute and some change, he can get you down there and get you the field goal. Likewise, at the end of the game, and that's why he's got the comeback victories on his resume that are noticed. And that's a strength. That's a great strength. That's actually a great trait, and that's why I'm always big on supporting Derek Carr, is that trait right there, man. When you can lead a team to victory or lead a team to points at the half, those are huge traits for your quarterback. But how do we build on that? That's my biggest thing. Another thing, his arm strength. He does have an NFL arm. He's got the arm strength. He's got the accuracy, man. When he does make some crazy throws, like I said, off-balance throws, similar to what Patrick Mahomes does, Carr can be very accurate on those plays, but he can also be a disaster at times on those plays. That's the risk-reward when it comes to a quarterback. But I put that as a strength because I'm big on risk-reward. Why not risk it? Risk it, baby. Go for the win. Go for the win. Nut up. I always say that. Nut up, man, and get that win. Another thing, Derek Carr is very efficient, so his interception to touchdown ratio is very low. I like that. Efficiency is a good thing in the end of that, and that's where analytics come in, and that's where analytics are spot on when they're looking at and they're quantifying his red zone attempts, his red zone efficiency, I should say, his touchdown to interception efficiency. Those are on point. But here's another one, man, and this is a big one for the NFL, and this is what caught my eye right away with Derek Carr, and especially in that preseason game versus Seattle when he's testing Richard Sherman. He's throwing low and away, back shoulder throws. I love it when Derek Carr throws back shoulder throws, man, and it's like they get away from it somehow. I know they gotta mix up the playbook. You gotta change it up. You gotta out scheme defenses, catch them off guard. But once again, the back shoulder throw, I think, is something they got to work on, and timing with the receivers, all that. It could lead to great things in the future. But once again, What stands out is the quick release from Derek Carr, man. That's something that's a hard thing to teach in the NFL. You got basically 2.5 seconds in the pocket to get rid of the football. That's today's NFL. With that said, there's been a lot of times this year where Derek Carr failed with that quick release where he's getting rid of the ball just way too fast. Hence, going back to week 2 from the 4-yard line versus the Kansas City Chiefs in Oakland. First and goal from the 4th. I know I'm beating a dead horse here. But my point being is, on that play, Derek Carr's release had to have been like 1.8 seconds. I didn't time it, but it was like within 2 seconds. He just needed to get his feet settled down a little bit and let the wide receiver adjust to the pattern and once again throw it to only where the wide receiver can catch it. What's the word we're looking for? Inside leverage. You'll hear the announcers say it all the time. He's got inside leverage. What they mean is, at that point, once the wide receiver has inside leverage, and you're always going to have it in one-on-one coverage in a short field like that in the red zone, you get the ball to only where the wide receiver can catch it. I'll leave it at that. So what I'm going to do to lead into the next topic on Tom Brady, so we're just going to jump into a clip from ESPN's First Take. Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, all them. I don't really watch their content, so to say, but when they're talking Raiders, I chime in and I kind of dive in and tap into what they're saying. They're a big network. It's a big discussion. Dan Orlovsky, though, I took his take from the clip because I think it makes the most sense, because that's exactly how I see it when I read it on paper. Once again, this is Tom Brady playing his strengths in the offseason. I'll get into this take, and then we'll get into our opinion on this as well.
I think anybody is going to hate to see Tom Brady in a jersey other than the New England Patriots. Right. But if it's going to, I don't think he's going back to New England. So if it's going to happen, there's a lot to like about the Raiders.
Wait, first, why do you think he's not going back to New England?
I think the question is, why would he go back to New England? I mean, to Stephen A's point is exactly right, that he needs to find a team that is a quarterback away. Okay. And New England is more than just a quarterback away. Major skill position issues, offensive line question marks. If you look at what transpired last year in New England, it was quarterback got beat up and no one to throw the football to. All right, so what teams in the NFL at least have that to offer, that, okay, we can protect the quarterback and we've got human beings to throw the football to? And the Raiders are at the top of the list. They have one of the better up-and-coming offensive lines in the NFL. So as a quarterback, you're going, all right, I'm going to be clean. I'm going to be protected. And then do they have some weapons? Well, Tyrell Williams is a really, really good receiver. Darren Waller is a very good tight end. Josh Jacobs is one of the better young tailbacks in the NFL. So we can run the football, we can protect, and there's 2 weapon pieces. The 12th pick of the draft, you can even go to Tom Brady if you're Mike Mayock and John Gruden and go, hey, come on. Pick the guy you want at 12. Pick the offensive weapon. Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs. I mean, Todd McShay, I just heard, talked about the depth of wide receiver at this class. And so there's a lot to like. Now, the downside is the defense is not great, and you got to play 15 twice.
So I went with Dan's take on this because he's basically saying that Tom Brady's not going back to New England. If you really think about it, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady are the face of the organization, the Patriots organization. Brady and Belichick being the face of the franchise, and Bob Kraft, he knows it, man. He knows it, so that's why he's already publicly spoken out about this, that they're going to keep Tom Brady, and odds are Tom Brady finishes his career as a Patriot. But the big question is Tom Brady and his own personal decision, because to a certain degree, the Patriots don't really control this situation. This is a decision that comes from Tom Brady himself. So he's driving this story right now. With this decision completely falling on Tom Brady and his agent, and the reports of John Gruden has a relationship with Tom Brady and reportedly wants Brady in Vegas. Per Adam Schefter, is that I am told the Raiders are poised to pursue Tom Brady this offseason if he is available. My point being on this is, how good is that relationship with Tom Brady and John Gruden? The big question for me is, with this being Wednesday, as I had said, and this report came out on Sunday, why haven't anybody in the Raider organization shot this down? Because it's true. Mike Mayock hasn't said nothing. Mark Davis hasn't said nothing. Correct me if I'm wrong. John Gruden, I haven't heard anything from him like, hey, no, Derek Carr's our guy. I mean, I haven't heard anybody from the Raider organization come out and back up Derek Carr over this rumor. So that's my big question, and that's why I do take this news seriously, of course, when it's coming out with Adam Schefter. And I know this report kind of flared up a little bit in the midseason. Everybody talking about Tom Brady being a free agent. Well, here we are heading into the offseason. This is a story, and this could be by design from Tom Brady and his agent to get more money, to leverage more in New England. Who knows? Who knows? Or do they want ownership? I mean, what is this leading to? So I'm going to kind of remain my opinion as, in the gray area, just like anybody else is. Like, I don't know where this is going to end up or how this is going to evolve. How hard the Raiders are going to push for Tom Brady if that's what's going down, because there's a tampering phase right now. The Raiders really can't say anything anyway. But they could say, something like Derek's our guy in 2020. Just things like that. And like I said, I could be missing things on that, but I'll point out the positives. And like I said, I'm always one to look at the positive. And that is, if you really look at this, a lot of people are like, why would Brady leave New England and go play for another team? Well, if you really look at it, how many offensive coordinators did Tom Brady, work with in New England? And how many of those offensive coordinators became head coaches in the league? A lot of, like I said, these quarterbacks, man, they can make an offensive coordinator look really good. And, that's just my only thing is nobody from the top and the Raiders have really come out to squash this rumor and put full support. You hear Derek Carr in his comments, his brother, they've all had their comments. And why defensive? That's another thing that bugs me. This is the NFL, man. When you're losing football games, man, you're going to be in that discussion as far as you're losing your job. That's just the way this league works. Another thing to keep in mind is that John Gruden wins with veteran quarterbacks. I mean, he didn't win with Chris Sims. He won a Super Bowl with Brad Johnson. Veteran quarterback behind center, making decisions. Good decisions. Brad Johnson was effective in that Super Bowl. They threw at Charles Woodson and Torrey James, who had metal plates in their leg. They knew what they were doing in that game. Aside from the defense knowing the playbook, Brad Johnson and Mike Allstott, they were engineering a good drives in the first half to get them up 34-3 in that Super Bowl. And then eventually the defense just took over. The defense kind of took over in the first half too. They exploited them. Either which way, the Raiders are screwed in that Super Bowl. But then you think of Rich Gannon. John Gruden had a very successful stint with Rich Gannon. And where was Rich Gannon acquired from? The Kansas City Chiefs. I remember when that happened. It's funny how so many people love Rich Gannon now, but back then, I remember when the Raiders signed Rich Gannon. And everybody was like, oh, he's washed up, or he's a Chief. Oh, that guy won with the Chiefs or whatever. Because Gannon was the guy that, I think he kept losing to like Elvis Grbac. And then they gave Elvis Grbac that big contract, and Gannon, here he is on the streets, man. Raiders swoop him up. John Gruden was saying that from the day he got hired. He was going to pursue Rich Gannon. And Rich Gannon paid off well. We got to a Super Bowl with Rich Gannon. So, once again, it's something that, needs to be taken in, as a Raider fan, a lot of Raider fans are like myself, we despise Brady. The Tuck rule. I'll take you back to the Tuck rule, unfinished business. Yeah, I got unfinished business. I remember that night like no other. I called radio stations that night, furious that call was pulled, that they pulled that out in that situation, a call that had never been called in like 60 years or 50 years or whatever it was at that time. They pull out that call out of the rule book and screw the Raiders over. That's Walt Coleman, though. Did Brady and Belichick, they got one? Did that boost their freaking dynasty? Did that start their dynasty? Hell yeah, it did. But, once again, thoughts on it. I'm just going to leave it at that. Because me, I'm a businessman. I've climbed up there in age. I'm a little bit, I'm 41 years old. There just comes a time where it's just like, it's been 17 years of losing. I'm not trying to... I'm just going to say it like this, man. This is the way business works, man. This is the big picture. When we talk about the big picture, this is the big picture. This is where you get tested, So anyway, give me your thoughts on it. No matter whatever the Raiders do, I support it, man. I'm not saying if the Raiders get Tom Brady, I'm not going and buying a Tom Brady jersey right out the gate. Like, oh my God, we got to win Super Bowls, all that stuff. If that was to even happen. But let me just give you my prospects in the draft this year. And that's Joe Burrow. LSU, yeah. Would I trade the farm for Joe Burrow? I probably would. Knowing as many quarterbacks as we may need, yes, I would. Joe Burrow, I think highly of. But once again, I don't think it's realistic. I think Cincinnati knows what they got right there at number 1. I think that's a lock for Cincinnati. But Joe Burrow is the number 1 prospect. If I'm really going franchise quarterback this year, over anything, free agency, anything, I'm going Joe Burrow. And he's going to be my day 1 starter. I'm throwing him to the Wolves, day 1. Number 1 overall pick. And number 2, we're going with the lefty man out of Alabama, Tua Tagovailoa. I'm going to go with him, man. 6'1", 218 pounds, the lefty. Once again, I think he's going top 3, if not top 5. I think Tua's a top 5 quarterback in this year's draft. Barring, even with the injury, I think teams are going to make that risk. I said that back in November, December, so that's why he's kind of been, Joe Burrow, they've been kind of ruled out, but this is where I have him ranked. Now, number 3, I'm going Justin Herbert, man. Justin Herbert has just, man, some of them Senior Bowl throws were very, very impressive. He had some low and away throws that I really like. Those are throws you can make in the NFL. Now, as far as the Raiders getting into the quarterback mix, maybe trading up, I'm cool with the Raiders trading up to get a Justin Herbert, 6'6", 227. I'm good with that as the Raiders. And he's mobile. He's mobile. He'll run if need be. So I'm big on Justin Herbert. Once again, don't want to trade too much to move up and get a Justin Herbert. So Jordan Love's my next spot. If we're taking a quarterback at number 12, Jordan Love, and not only that, if the Raiders did get Tom Brady, this is the guy I want to groom behind Tom Brady, is Jordan Love. Maybe Justin Herbert, but Jordan Love more so. He reminds me of Jacoby Brissett. I like Jacoby Brissett. I've said that over and over again. But Jordan Love, 6'4", 225. A lot of people were harping on him in Senior Bowl practice. I didn't get that. I thought that was horrible criticism. I like the zip I see on the ball. Yeah, maybe it gets away from him a little bit, but overall, I like what I see from Jordan Love. It reminds me of Jacoby Brissett, man, and I'm a fan of that style of football. I'm a fan of the RPO offense. I've said it over and over again, or even giving the look. Even if teams that line up and show RPO, but it's really not an RPO, I'm down with that style of offense. Just, in my opinion, it's what's evolving in the NFL. Next, I'm going Jacob Eason from Washington, man. Another 6'6", 227 guy. Of course, still raw to a certain degree, but I like his grit, man. I like that, he's just the kind of quarterback I think that you could develop into a solid starter in the NFL. And then the number 6, man, I got Jalen Hurts, man. I've always been a fan of Jalen Hurts. I know he kind of fell off a little bit. He could be a 2nd or 3rd round, quarterback selected. But Jalen Hurts out of Oklahoma, I like him. I think he's got a professional demeanor to him. He's not going to make your crazy throws, but can he operate in an NFL offense? That's the big question. And that's what I'm looking at from the big picture standpoint. Last, number 7 from Georgia, and I'm not a fan of him, but I listed him because a lot of people like him, is Jake Fromm, man, from Georgia. There's just something about him that doesn't, he's worthy, but this is a quarterback right here that I just did not fall in love with, but that's just my standpoint with Jake Fromm. I'm not a big fan of him, but I have him listed at number 7 because, once again, if he's there, like I said, for me, probably a 3rd or 4th round pick, and that's probably devaluing what his actual value is. And from my standpoint, I'm probably taking away from his value and what it really is. He realistically could be a 2nd or 3rd round pick, but once again, if he's there in the 4th round and we're thinking we need a quarterback at that point, and we have not, at least put some competition there, maybe they're in the 4th round. That's just my opinion. Now, free agents, man. This was a tough one, man. This was a tough one. I went with Teddy Bridgewater, number 1 prospect in free agency. 6'2", 215, drafted the same year Derek Carr. Teddy Bridgewater, man, maybe in a Gruden's offense, might be effective. So just one to think about there. Number 2, I have Case Keenum. I've never been too hard on Case Keenum. He's a veteran. He's a gritty veteran. He's the kind of guy that, if your quarterback goes down, you got yourself somebody who's serviceable. And I'll leave it at that. And at number 3, I got Marcus Mariota. Now, I've never really been a fan of Marcus Mariota, even if his days coming out of Oregon. I know he was like a top 5 prospect when he came out of Oregon, if not a number 1 overall pick. They talked about him for years. Now, Marcus Mariota, the only reason I got him listed at number 3 is because of upside. You know, I still think there's some upside there with Mariota, what you can build on. I don't think he's fully developed once again, and it's finding the right system for Marcus Mariota. So between all these 3 free agent quarterbacks, I'm looking at these guys as system fits for John Gruden. That's overall. So that's why they're not the big, you know, and I'm not going for unrealistic ones like, hey, I think Phillip Rivers should be a Raider, you know. I rule that one out. Like Drew Brees, rule it out. Dak Prescott, you know, rule that out. Including Tom Brady, you know, because Tom Brady, like I said, is going to dictate his future. And not every Raider fan wants that. So ultimately, we want to see Carr finish this thing out strong in 2020, and in year 3 with John Gruden, see what he can do. You know, have this. I mean, we were told in year 1 in 2018 that Derek Carr had this offense mastered. So to see confusion between wide receivers and Derek Carr, we want to see what Derek Carr is going to build on in 2020. You know, I just think overall, just for Derek Carr's own good, and I've been saying this in other podcasts, is that just disconnect from social media, disconnect from Google, you know, and Raider news, and connect more with what your offseason is all about, and that is getting better and winning games, mastering the playbook, whatever it may be, fundraisers, you know, the positive stuff, man. Do focus on that stuff, and I'm not saying Derek's not focusing on that, and family, all that stuff, man. But it just sucks to see Derek Carr reacting to some of this discussion, you know, and it's almost like dodge that question when they ask you. Tell them, you know, you're working, whatever it is. I don't want to tell another man what to say, but what I'm saying is that just it'd be nice to see Derek Carr distract from all this talk and focus on his craft and focus on his future with the Raiders. All right, so that's a wrap for today's show. We got into the quarterback discussion, much needed discussion. With all that's taken place throughout this week, this conversation is going to continue on MoJoe's Podshow shortly after. So I believe he'll be premiering that coming up here tomorrow. So we'll get on board with that. Do check in the link description. You can subscribe to his channel. He's giving away a Jonathan Abram autographed jersey, also an autographed Derek Carr helmet. Do check in for that and subscribe and get all the details so you can win you a nice piece of memorabilia. And yeah, man, that's going to wrap it up today, man. It's a beautiful Wednesday. Man, we're already on Wednesday. Thank God. I'm so glad the Super Bowl's over. I'm so glad we're in the off season, man. It's time. And also, I'm going to follow up with more video breakdowns. I'm going to do a video breakdown coming up more at the safety position. We're going to get heavy into that. And, man, just looking forward to chopping up more content, getting excited. It's Vegas. It's the off season. And let's get it. I'm out. Peace.